Hey everybody, it is Wintermute coming to you from the think tank, and today's video we're going to go into Russia, or the USSR as it is really known at this point in history. Um, the it's got now, and I'm going to use the term Russia and USSR interchangeably just out of habit, so don't pick on me for that, but just know that they really mean the same thing. Russia's kind of particular because it has some things about it that are very unique to it, and are so that are definitely worth noting, and that'll make more sense as I go into them. So so we'll just start right off the top of the list. Home country. Okay, basically everything in red on the board, and I'm gonna have to move this around quite a bit during the video. The camera, just because of the sheer size of the USSR at this point. Everything that is red that starts off with a brown on it that is not an island is considered home country. So all that is home country. Um, the excuse me. They also control the Spanish Republican forces in the Spanish Civil War. We'll talk a little bit more about them later. And during the Chinese Civil War, they controlled the Chinese Communist Party, and we'll do a separate China video. So when we go down their overview, it also goes straight into explaining or mentioning the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. I talked quite a bit about that in the German video. Just to kind of re-illustrate, though, some of the key points. You can say no to it, but with the risks, but again, Russia starts off with only 8 IPP a turn. That is very, very small. And when you're that kind of starved for IPP, it's hard to say no to 3 more a turn, and then you get a tech roll on top of that. So you'll just have to kind of do the math yourself and whether or not you think it's worth it. Generally, I do it just because, again, it's at least it's some income per turn. So. Then it also mentions the Soviet-Japanese border clashes in 1936 only. Japan and the Soviet Union may engage in border clashes. Either side may attack units on the other side of a jointly held land border in one round of combat, but all units must start in an adjacent zone. Aircraft may not be brought in from a different zone. Neither side may capture land zones from the other without a declaration for war. Border clashes end when the Japanese-Soviet non-aggression pact is signed. So let's take a quick look over here at the actual border. So in this case, you're looking at Primorsky Krai, and if I mispronounce some of this stuff, I apologize now. I'm sure I am. Amur and Chita on the Russian side, and then you've got Western Manchuria, Eastern Manchuria. You actually also have Korea, because it does connect right there, and then Northern Manchuria on the Japanese side. Now, here's the thing with border clashes. I think in the immediate, border clashes tend to, and losses suffered tend to be a little tougher on Russia because they have such a small income to start with. However, in the long term, any casualties inflicted on the Japanese player will hurt them more in the long term because it's a little harder for them to replace units throughout the game because their overall economy needs to ramp up. And they're always, and they start the game very starved for units. So is it worth it for the Russian player to initiate those border clashes? I don't have a good definitive answer. I will say this: if you want to avoid border clashes and being hit by border clashes, there's a couple things that you can do. First thing you can do is just move all your units off the border. Then there's nothing there to attack. The other thing you can do is you can consolidate all the units that are in this side of the front into one area. So if the Japanese player wants to come in, you're getting a full, all those defenders in one shot, rather than letting him pick off a unit or two at a time. And you can also go ahead and just build and then move a flak gun over there, an AA artillery, and say, all right, well, if you want to come at me, I'm going to shoot at your aircraft. Because odds are they're going to send an aircraft to get the firepower superiority for that one round. And if so, those are kind of three ways that you can just kind of avoid them. When it comes to initiating them, I don't know. That Russia just doesn't have a whole lot over there to start with, and I don't know. Think it's worth to start sending units over there to do a border clash. So I don't think that overall. I don't think they're really in Russia's favor, even though historically they were. Russia did very well with those border clashes and kicked the crud out of the Japanese. So that's kind of how I feel about them. But it's ultimately going to be your call, and always you may see an opportunity that comes up based on what the Japanese player does to kind of go, oh, you know what, I can punish him for that now and get in there and have a border clash. So because maybe he puts maybe he has only one or two infantry or one or two militia, and then a fighter or two, and you're like, wow, you know what? If I consolidate my force and go in and get a good round of hits on that one round, I may cut into some of his aircraft. I mean, maybe then it's totally worth it for you. But that's going to be kind of up to you to make that decision when the time comes, based on what your opponent does. But again, those other options I gave you are possible if you just want to avoid them altogether. So your call based on your game, ultimately. So then we're going to go to Lend-Lease. Now, Russia may lend lease to any nation regardless of war status. Now, there's no date on that, and there's no... they can just lend lease kind of to anybody. Yeah, so not that they have a lot of money to do that with. And going back to the whole Lend-Lease thing, and then back to the Spanish Civil War, you're going to have to make the call as to how much you're going to want to invest in the Spanish Civil War. The odds in the base game, the odds of the Republicans winning is not good, barring some really bad die rolls on the Axis player side. But even then, even if the Axis player gets a couple rounds of bad roll or a round or two of bad rolls and they lose more than they should, you can still have Germany and Italy constantly putting another unit or two in there every turn. So just by sheer persistence and dumping money into it, odds are they are far more likely to win than the Republicans in the long run, just because they can just put more into it, and they can afford to put more into it from the get-go, because both Italy and Germany start at their full, for them, what's their full wartime income, where Russia is far from its wartime income and is reinvesting in reorganizing its communist utopia. Now, I have toyed in the past with, at least giving a militia a turn, turn after turn after turn to kind of maybe slow down the victory in Spain for the nationalists, but I've never been very successful. Now, truth be told, though, I've never been successful with any time I've played Spain. My die rolls have just been horrendous for no matter what side I play. Yeah, so maybe I'm a bad test of that, but that's still gonna. I mean, if you're gonna put a militia in there a turn just to kind of slow them down, or hopefully slow them down, that's a fourth of your economy at that point. So I'm kind of the opinion. You're either gonna go. You should either commit whole hog and go, okay, we're gonna really give good units and what we can to really extend that out and really go ahead and give them a mountain infantry every turn, or give them an infantry every turn, and really, really fight, or don't even bother. That's kind of where I stand on it, just from past experience. But again, you may have a German and Italian player that don't put a whole lot into Spain, and they're going, we'll just kind of fight that, and they'll eventually win. Or maybe they just put a couple units in for the first few turns, but then they stop, but they never reach that critical mass to really finish it off, and then maybe in later turns it's worth it for Russia to go ahead and start pumping in an infantry every turn to go ahead and at the very least extend it, if not maybe give a chance to win it, and draw more resources away from Italy and Germany if they want to keep fighting for it. And they should fight for it. They really should. It's worth 2 victory points for the Axis by itself. But of course, if Russia can win, that's great. But I would not count on that as the Russian player. It'd just be nice if it could. So that's kind of my take on Lend-Lease. Now, is anybody else worth Lend-Leasing to up to that point? Well, the communists in China are, but they need to figure out a way to get somehow of getting the Lend-Lease to them, and that's a whole other video. But they are probably worth Lend-Leasing to if and when the opportunity arises. So, and this is something else I talked about in the German video, the surrender. If the Soviet capital is captured, the Soviet Union may declare another capital. This capital must be in Soviet home country and have a point value. If all land zones in Soviet home country have been occupied, the USSR surrenders. So, yeah, there's really no way to effectively knock Russia out of the war. Well, there's no way to easily knock Russia out of the war completely, like you could in like Axis and Allies, because they just keep on popping up a new capital and they just keep on fighting. And there is, not only now, granted, most of their IPP value zones are over here, so you could capture most or if all of them. Germany might get that lucky, but then they just come over here and they have all these that can become the new capital. I don't know why that color or the color on my phone changed like that, but all these can become the new capital, and they just keep fighting. Now, this isn't a ton of resources over here. There's only about 9 IPP over here, but they could still be a pain in your butt. At the end, though, it's really difficult to ever just knock them out. You're always going to be fighting Russia as the Axis players somehow, some way. So just bear that in mind when you're dealing with Russia, and then as the Russian players, you're always going to you're going to be around to the end of the game most likely. So excuse me. So let's talk about their victory objectives. And their victory objectives are a little more, Germany's are a little more straightforward. Have this grouping or this group, have this much economy, and so on and so forth. Russia has they actually have more flexibility overall with their victory conditions. And you'll see what I mean as I say this. So we'll start with the first one, buffer zone. Score 1 victory objective if the USSR possesses East Poland. So right there, let me adjust this a little bit. And, there it is. So East Poland, Lubelski, I'm sure I've been pronouncing that one wrong. Karjala, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. So here, and here. Basically, almost everything that was, agreed upon in the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact that Germany would not get in the way of Russia taking. So Russia still wants them, as a buffer zone to the European powers, by the end of the game. Now, of course, when Germany attacks, you'll probably lose all of them initially, but you'll have the chance to get them back. Now, I'm going to skip the next one because that one's going to take the longest to kind of go over, but Eastern Security. Score 1 victory objective if at end of game the USSR can trace a supply path using railroads from Moscow to Primorsky Krai. Ignore damage markers for this calculation. So, Moscow. There we go. Primorsky Krai. So this is the railroad that you need to, or basically, this is that railroad path that you need to bring you able to draw to Moscow. So that's that. Again, that one's a little straightforward. Just keep that area connected to Moscow. Don't let anybody get in and take these territories. Excuse me. Ice-free port. Score one victory objective if the USSR possesses one of the following: a major naval base with a sea zone number of 8 or greater, or B, Crimea and Istanbul. So there's Crimea, there's Istanbul, and then a major naval base. So it says naval base. That means it can be a major port, a major shipyard, or a major dockyard. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, I couldn't think of it. It just says major naval base, in a sea zone number of 8 or greater. So they want to be able to make now they basically start off with that one because Leningrad here is already in 16, but they need to make sure that they hold on to that throughout the game. Obviously, Leningrad is not a victory conditioned city directly that the Germans want to take from you, but it's one of the two, or it's one of two when they need to for one of their victory objectives. And Leningrad should not be easy to take, but it is a major factory, and taking that really kind of opens up that northern area for them to come in and take, just makes things easier for them. But that one's also pretty self-explanatory. And then the next one is technological superiority. Score one victory objective if the USSR ends the game with heavy strategic bombers, long-range aircraft, strategic rockets, and heavy armor technology. Now, here's the thing with this. When most people look at the tech chart, they immediately go, okay, what's going to be useful for me to win this war? And in my opinion, two out of these meet that criteria. The other two can be useful and are perfectly reasonable techs to go after, but they're a little bit more indirect in their value to Russia. And so, like, heavy armor and long-range aircraft are the two that I think are pretty good for Russia to get. Heavy armor is just a solid unit all around. Long-range aircraft, there's really no nation that wouldn't benefit, that wouldn't be happy to have that one. But heavy bombers and strategic rockets are not as directly useful in the way Russia will most likely be fighting this war. And I'm not saying they're useless, not by any stretch, but at some point when you are playing Russia, and America has a similar kind of tech-based victory condition, you're going to have to make the decision, okay, do I just focus on rolling for stuff that will win me the war or keep me in the fight directly? Better units, even mechanized infantry, advanced artillery, improved factories, all that stuff. Or do I go ahead and start rolling some dice for things that will get me that victory point at the end of the game, as opposed to directly winning me the combats on the ground? And that's just a decision you're going to have to make. Excuse me. Remember, though, that that's a decision you've got to make early enough that to actually have a shot at getting it. Because even if you get all four, even if you go from no levels to you have that tech, you still got to make 4 successful rolls. Even if you make them all in a row, you still got to do that before 4 turns before the end of the game. If you decide to go for those techs 4 turns before the end of the game and then you start missing your rolls, well, it just isn't going to happen. You're going to have to make that decision sooner than that. Definitely far sooner than that, just to give you a decent shot. And one of the problems with that is, I know right off the top of my head, strategic rockets is a 9 or better. It's not 8 like some of the others, or 7 like most of them. So you're going to have to kind of decide whether you're going to go for that victory point probably pretty early in the game, or whether or not you're just going to shrug and go for the stuff that you know is going to win the ground war. Your call on that one. So, worldwide communism. Now, this one is very, very open, because it's Score one victory objective for each land zone worth at least one IPP that the USSR possesses at the end of the game that it did not possess at the start of the game and are not scored as part of another Soviet victory condition. Spanish land zones where IPP possessed by the Republicans count as well. So, this one you've got a lot more freedom of choice with. It's worth up to 11 points. 11. Now, historically, we know what happened is Russia came in, and created and turned all these areas in here into Soviet puppet states. And, so any one of those basically could be scored. Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, Yugoslavia, Slovakia, Bohemia, Poland, Warsaw, East Poland, so on and so forth. All these basically could be scored at that. But, of course, Russia still needs to come in and take those territories. But beyond that, what about some other places on the map that you might consider as possible targets? Russia, in theory, could attack Iran and take Azerbaijan. That's worth a victory point, or it's worth it gives them one IPP. Now, of course, that would probably upset Britain a little, but it's a point, and you're fighting, and as Russia, that's the other thing that I was going to cover later, but let me go into this right now. Mention it. You are probably going to piss off the Allies throughout this game, and it's just something you're going to have to get used to. This is a three-way game. Russia, the Comintern are fighting for their own objectives. And I know every other kind of World War II game I've ever played on this kind of scale, it's, the Axis versus the Allies, and Russia gets lumped in with the Allies. Well, the truth is, yeah, maybe technically, but realistically, they were fighting for their own victory objectives. That is very historically accurate. And you've got to get used to the idea that you may do things that will piss off the Allies because you feel you need to do it to put Russia into to get those victory points for Russia, or put you into a position of advantage over the Axis, even if that's at the cost of something the Allies don't want you to do. And that's actually, for a lot of players, will probably be a mental hurdle that they have to get over when they start playing Russia, the Comintern, especially in China. And I'll go more into that with China. Russia will feel a little more difficult because people are so used to thinking of Russia as being on the same side as Britain, France, and America, rather than kind of playing for its own game, its own end game. But you got to get used to that idea. And once you start playing, you'll see what I mean, because you'll keep looking back at these victory objectives, going, well, you know what? I mean, yeah, you know what? That they may not want me to do that, but I'm going to do that because that's going to score me victory points. Even though they don't want me to do that, because it may take economy away from them or make things a little harder for them. So you got to get used to that idea as this being a three-way game. Okay, that said, and that plays into worldwide communism because, Russia may start taking territory that the Allies don't want them to take. They may go ahead and declare war on countries that have been neutral the whole game, but they're like, you know what, we got a couple turns left, and I think I can take Turkey. All right, you know what, that's a very real possibility. If they can take Turkey out, that's two more victory points right there for Istanbul and Anatolia. And then, so that is something that the Russian player, you have a lot of other options when it comes to that as the Russian player. What are you going to come try and take some of this territory down in the Middle East? Are you, you've got the whole Scandinavian area up there. Are you going to go ahead and try to push into Finland? Make a real strong push into Finland? And then from there, are you going to go ahead and try to go into Norway or go into Sweden just because you can? Because if Russia does take Sweden out, they take a bonus, one of the IPP bonuses that Germany can get from them being neutral, or in Axis. But if they can Axis possession, but if they can take them out, not only are they scoring points for those two zones, they're also denying income to Germany. So that's a viable option for the worldwide communism one as well. So the you'll just have to kind of keep an eye on that one as the game progresses as to potential targets. So yeah, that's their victory objectives. So we're gonna go ahead and excuse me. We're gonna look at the peacetime income increases, and this one, something really interesting happens with Russia with this. So most of them are pretty standard to begin with. Japan possesses a new land zone adjacent to USSR home country, +2 each time. Now the only place that's really likely to happen is if they manage to take out all of China and get all the way to Xinjiang there, or they do something funky with Mongolia, and maybe you'll get some more there. So I wouldn't really expect them to trigger that one a whole lot, but it is possible. So don't expect that one to be triggered a whole lot. But Germany or Italy possesses new land zone adjacent to USSR home country. So, and again, and I talked with this a lot about this in the German video about like when Romania joins the Axis. That's a D12 for the Russians. If the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact is not signed, and then Germany comes into Lubieski or East Poland, then that's a D12 each time. And then it's even more if they go up into Latvia and Estonia, and so on and so forth. That one's more likely to be triggered depending on how the game is going. At the very least, you'll get the Romanian one, most likely. But the other ones may just sort of happen as the game moves on, depending on what's going on. So, but that one's also pretty straightforward. Now, if the USSR is attacked by a major power, it moves to full income. It goes, oh, okay, we gotta get into this fight. Now we're gonna go to Sleeping Bear, and this is much like the rearmament for the Americans and the British and the French and so on and so forth. But it has a caveat to it, and that caveat is going to move into something else, which we'll get to in a second. Starting July 1939, the USSR's income increases by 1d12 each turn at the start of the USSR's production phase. If the USSR declares war on a major power before reaching wartime income, it does not immediately go to full income, but continues Sleeping Bear rolls until it reaches full income. Now, how is that drastically different than the other allies? The allies. Now, Britain and France and America all have that when they reach their wartime economy, they can then declare war. Russia does not need to be at its wartime economy to declare war. Instead, it has a date that it hits when it can declare war. And that date is, if you see here, can Russia declare war on any neutral? Yes, starting July 1939. Can it declare war on Axis powers or Vichy France? Yes, starting July 1939. And there's also a bit here about the Allied powers. I'm not even going to go into that. The likelihood of that happening is very slim, and that's just something your group will work out when you get there. But yeah, their ability to declare war is based on a date as opposed to their income level, unlike the rest or the Allied forces. So that immediately makes them different in that sense. And that's when you go back to the Sleeping Bear and go, okay, well, let's say Russia declares war on Germany preemptively. But Russia is still 10 points away from its 46. Total value of land zones. It doesn't jump up to 46 because it declared war on Germany. Instead, it stays at that 36. We're saying it's 10 short, and then from there on, it keeps on making those Sleeping Bear rolls until it maxes out at its cap. So that is definitely something that the Axis players need to keep in their minds in case Russia decides to do something hinky and preemptively strike somebody, somewhere. So that's and as the Russian player, keep your eye on things because maybe you'll see a chance to bushwhack Germany somehow. I'm not saying it's likely. I'm just saying it might be possible that a situation arises where you can pounce on Japan or Germany in a way that is going to really hurt them, and that they're going to struggle to get back to. They're going to struggle to retake that territory or replace those units you just blew up. So just a a very different kind of caveat and mindset when you're playing Russia when it comes to how it can declare war compared to Britain, France, and America. So that is one of the more interesting aspects of Russia, in my opinion. That its ability to declare war is based on a date rather than its income. So, okay, with that out of the way, excuse me, I'm sorry, my throat's been a little sore of late. It's not COVID, relax. So, wartime bonuses. And their wartime bonuses are pretty straightforward. Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact is in effect. Also available, Wild Peace is +3 per turn. The Soviet Arctic convoy line is free of enemy submarines. And that also comes with the caveat that USA can deny it. Can deny per 1.6. Now, what convoy line is that? Let's scoot up here to this upper part here, and you will see that it actually starts right here, and there's the Russian symbol that shows that it's a Russian convoy line. But as you go along the whole convoy line, you will realize it has no value attached to it. This convoy line is here solely for the purpose of Russia getting that +2 wartime bonus of supplies coming in, I'm assuming from America in this case, because they can deny it. So yeah, now now all the enemy has to do is keep enemy submarines off of it. Even surface ships don't really stop it. It just says enemy submarines. So if now obviously keeping submarines off of this line, that's going to be a hard thing for Russia to do. That's going to be something that they're really going to probably have to ask Britain to help with, and or America, and or whatever's left of Free France, in terms of keeping that line open. So this is where some teamwork comes into play, and where Russia is kind of like, well, okay, look, guys, you've kept that open this whole game for me, thank you. So I won't go ahead and do something hinky later on or crazy with Russia. And that's that interplay between the different factions. So now that isn't to say Russia is completely powerless. They can still send out destroyers. I mean, they can still build seaplanes and things like that. But their range is going to be very short. Unless they get lucky and start grabbing territory over here or over here, and even then, that's still going to be really rough for them. So really, they're going to need America and Britain's help to keep this open, and that whether they're willing is going to depend on the overall circumstances of the game. But definitely something you want to talk to the other players with